First of all, I wish everybody a Piska Tova. By us, right now it's Motzi, day after Yom Kippur. I don't know when people listen to it, but Al Kapanim, a Piska Tova is good all the time. We're going to do Parshas Bereishis. Parshas Bereishis obviously includes many, many important things. It actually has 65 pages worth of Rishonim on an hour Rishonim. Okay, the first one's an Akedah. Ha'omnam, he says, Ki mevuah me'atzmoi sha'torah aloikis yesh la shnei minei mitzius. Torah has two sets of mitzius, two strata of mitzius. Ha'echad, ha'muskal ha'ruchni asher b'iksuva lefana be'eish chayal gabesh levana. There is the ruchniistic abstract format, which Chazal say was written in black fire and white fire. That is the ikar of Torah. Asher boy vaday bereishis u'me'ula b'madrega kamtzos. In that sense, it is beyond and above all the nimtzoim. Hashem kanani reishis darka. Baruch Hu made me the first point in His road. Moshe Omer al Payin Shana Kam Torah B'Yis Olam Im Shalalon Yavibur B'Shahei B'Ez Hashem. Omno HaMetzius HaShniya, the second Metzius of Torah is Metzius Muchash U'Morgash, a physical and palpable Metzius Mitzad Mashi Ksuva B'Sefer B'Yoy, written on parchment and ink. V'nitna L'Faneinu L'Lamed Etonu L'Haishes Ma'aseh Yadeinu. It's there to teach us and to direct us to do right. The mitzius of a physical Torah is for us, and we are the siba for it. Despite the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the shorus of everything, and everything was created l'chvodo. His reason for choosing Klal Yisrael, or legolos al Har Sinai, lashmir Torah mitzius kol ha'masim, and everything that happened at Sinai, lo yehoyu ki'im ba'avur ha'ombli safik. It was for Klal Yisrael. Moshe Amar hina nechabo lechaba ba'anan ba'avur v'chulu. Let's talk and explain this, because this is one of the most fundamental points of what Torah is and how to understand the duality of Torah. Let's give a mashal. Once again, we'll take two or three disciplines and see how they form strata one on top of another. You have mathematics, you have physics, you have engineering, and one traces it as going from the abstract to the concrete. The sense is that the greatest emes lies in the math, because the math is really independent of whether it's laws of physics, whether it's economics, whether it's finances, or whether it's statistics about psychology. The math remains the same, and that sort of covers everything. Physics is one example of a series of mathematical relationships, or relationships that are expressed mathematically, put it that way, and they apply to things in our world. This is the rate at which things attract each other. This is the rate at which things hold on to each other. This is the rate at which things move under these circumstances, and so on. And engineering is sort of the most physical of it, in the sense that it's specifically how one builds buildings, or whatever it is, bridges, or anything like that, using the principle of physics, implementing it in the practical lemaistic solution. If we ask ourselves which is the most true in the sense that it is completely independent of any other factors, math would be the one. If we ask ourselves what engineering is there for, the answer would be for us. Engineering is tailor-made for people who need bridges and buildings and whatever else. Now, the Torah itself contains an element of truth that is beyond the specific mitzvahs, the specific events, and so on. And that's the Pshat Hashem Kanani Reish Darkoi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has placed me, has made me the beginning of the road, because once HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided on a mitzius, once at the point from where there's a decision for mitzius, for Gilui, HaKadosh Baruch Hu needed a starting point, and the most shorishtika beginning of some sort of structure of Ruchnius is Torah at its most abstract level. And that's what Chazal say, it was fire, it was black fire on white background, on white fire, meaning it was something not physical in the sense, not only wasn't it physical, but it didn't relate to the physical, it related to something abstract. Abstract truths that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. The chelik of Torah that is the fully physical chelik, which means, yes, it's the parchment, it's the words, but it's not just because parchment is physical and words are physical, and ink is physical. What I think what Akeda means is words by nature are more physical. It's just like a person has feelings and he expresses them in words. The words, before the words, there was much more abstract sense of things, and the words sort of give it a certain concreteness that you don't have in an earlier stage. So if we ask ourselves, what is the Torah that is most shaykh to us? And what was the reason for Torah to be given in a form that is physical and concrete? And the answer is for us, because for us the Torah that's beyond that doesn't mean anything. So those are the two. Yes.
So why are Chazal using the muscle of fire? What is the black fire on written onto the white fire?
I think Pinchas is very right in the terms of, let's zero in on the mashal itself. Light is considered to be the most ruchni-like element in our world. If we want something that's not physically tangible, then the word we use is light. Or was the first bria. Even in physics, sort of the photons are the least easy. Their properties are the most. What would be the right word to use? Ethereal, maybe. I'm not sure how to describe it, but it's something that is at least physical in the sense of palpability and so on. Now, pure light itself contains no information. At best, it's a medium, but it doesn't have information unless you have a contrast. The first step of information is something against something else. Against meaning in the background something else. Just like computers there's a binary system that gives you the information. Yes and no, 0, 1. That's the minimum. A system that doesn't have two, there's no such thing as a unitary system, because that gives no information. A binary system gives information, and a binary system can give you all the information in the world. It's black light against white light is already there. That's the first instance of some sort of gili of a mahalach b'chachma. Tov and Ra, or and choshech. Some or against some choshech. Some choshech against some or. So if we want to speak about bereishis darko, it's the thing that is divorced almost totally from physicality, has no. It's a very abstract, refined, primal state of Chachmas Yisbarach. And then it comes down to us. In a certain sense, the Kabbalah deals with trying to understand it in more shorishtika Chachma. Like, when Lulav and Esra can be understood in terms of this meat and that meat and other midah, everything can be boiled down to certain midas, and the midas themselves can be further compressed. So it's sort of an attempt to go there. But it's important to understand that Torah has in itself a chelik. For instance, a tour guide contains only the information that's there. So go to London. In this street you have this. In this street you have this. This subway goes there. This underground goes here. This cab goes here, and so on and so forth. The words are what they are, and that's it. When somebody writes a novel, a good novel, then the word and the story means a lot more than it says. It's just a way of painting a certain picture that you're trying to convey a certain sense of something. And that's really sort of Lahavlov Havdalas. Torah spans that. And so when we speak of Seidas HaTorah, we speak about the Pnim, and we speak about the Giluyim. I want to add one more point, and we've probably mentioned it over the times, but it just remains very significant. There are two extremes that both of them are bad, wrong. One is that Torah is just the things that it says there. Avram Avinu was a kind, elderly gentleman who lived a life like ours. He was Avram, he had a white beard, that was no razors yet, no shavers, no razors, and he had a son, he had some problems with his wife, and da-da-da. And even if you accept it as it is, and so on and so forth, but you see all of Torah, and the reason for Chasnida is to have a much better life with your wife, and kosher somehow is good for us, and this and that, the other thing. That cuts Torah to its outermost layer, and I quote the Zohar on it. The Zohar says, if Torah is just a novel, there are a lot better novels written. That's what the Zohar says. So if Torah, if anybody's had the fortune or misfortune of hearing a secular approach to the Bible, the typical secular academic approach to the Bible, it will go along the following lines. Well, certainly, I mean, we're not talking about history here, and we're not talking about things that are what they are and they mean what they mean, but they are beautiful stories. And please, stories are very important. And don't make light of stories, because stories give us some of our key values and so on and so forth. Forget about the kfir part of it, but just bringing it all down to me, you, and the other person. There's an expression of Rit Lulmod Tanakh Begova Einayim. To teach Tanakh, that it's about me, you, and him. The stories are stories that are me, you, and him, and that's that. So that is wrong. That basically takes Torah and slices it to its lowest common denominator. And it's just like saying engineering starts at engineering, ends at engineering. It's not built on physics, not built on math. It's then just kind of a nice way how to build bridges. Not very, very enlightening. The other extreme is also bad. People, because today Kabbalah is so popular, so instead of Lulav and Esrik taking the blossoms of Eretz Yisrael and the simcha that a person has when things grow, and he stands in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Meshabeachim B'tuvoi, and so on. It's all about this sphere and that sphere and the other sphere, and combine the spheres does this, combine the spheres does that. It's almost as Torah stops at a certain point and doesn't come into mitzius either. The fact that a person needs to eat, and he works in a field, and when there is bounty and beauty, Reb Chatzkel Sarna used to say, when we say in verse Hamazon, Kashbar Zotskal Tuva B'chein B'chesed V'rachamim, he said, Melech Chesed and Rachamim, we understand. But what's Chein? So Chatzah Sarno was extremely picturesque, and he was about most had a tremendous sense of the world. Said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu could have given us food and sustenance, and an apple could have been a gray piece of styrofoam that we need for our bodies. Instead, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it color and life and taste and texture and every other part of it that makes an apple so enjoyable, so beautiful. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the world Chein also. If Reb Shamshval Hirsch is probably the best to bring out these things, to understand how all of these abstract midas and spheres and who knows what come into the world, and there's blossoming, and there's beauty, and there's life, and there's happiness, and so on and so forth, is a very, very important chelik of it. And you don't see the whole picture unless you see it that way. And it takes a very, very broad vision to see it. And different people relate to different parts of it. Some people are engineers, some people are physicists, some people are mathematicians, and some people provide the financing and the mortgages. But at the end of the day, at least sensing that Torah is meant to be Torah's Chaim on the one hand, it's meant to blossom into life on the most physical level and become tzitzis and tefillin and Torah. And it's important. I think the right way of doing it, which I think is the way it should have been done, is to teach a person at different kufas in his life different havanas. A child needs to be sensitive to a blossoming field, to a sunrise, to a sunset, to people's anxiously looking out for rain, and the feeling of relief when rain comes, when things begin to grow, when people are well, relationships, the whole gamut of human life. Avodas Hashem needs to start with that, with being sensitive to it and understanding it. And then a person needs to understand that the corn and the bread and the coffee is the tip of it, and there's more behind it, and still more behind that, and still more behind that. The Shalah Kodesh says, the people ask him if there could be a steer between Nigla and Nista. He says they don't understand the definition of Nigla and Nista. Nista is that which is hidden in the Nigla. It's like asking, could there be a steer between between reality and physics, and the laws of physics? The laws of physics are the reality within reality. It's not as if some professor created a book of physics and then somebody walks outside and says it doesn't stim with everything. You're talking about the laws. It's the pnim of something else. So Mela, these are two stratas in Torah that Kedah says, and it's important for the Shleimus to understand it as such. One of the Sfarim that I think is actually a very good sefer. One of the Sfarim that has it is the Akedah. The Akedah speaks. He was in touch with Kabbalah and understood the Torah as containing a lakus and stretching all the way there, but he speaks the language of this world, and many ideas are expressed in ideas of this world, and it's extraordinary. Maybe that's why it's so popular today. But it's an important perspective on the world. Okay, the next one is a very famous Ramban on a very famous Rashi. Bereishis bar Elokim. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak le'atzach las hatorah le'mechayeres le'elachem ki mitzvah rishayna she'nitzav b'Yisrael. Matam bas bereishis mishum koyach ma'aser v'iklamei. Shem yomu u'mezaylu nistim atem shekavasham chamaratzes she'legoyim, and so on. Very famous Rashi, first Rashi, that the Torah shouldn't have started with bereishis, but rather with HaKodesh Hazeh, and it started bereishis to justify the conquest of Eretz Yisrael. This is a medrash that Rashi wrote up. So Ramban asks in it, I don't understand, he says, there's a tremendous need to start with bereishis. I mean, Emunah is a very important part of Torah, and bereishis describes the emunah as we have it. Someone who doesn't believe in bereishis, kadmon, if he thinks that the world is eternal, it predates, so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu koifer be'ika ve'lo Torah klal. He's a kofer. If a person thinks mitzvahs are great and wonderful, but there's a reality that predates HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he has no Torah. Vatshuva. So he answers why it is that what the pshat nekash is. Vatshuva. Mipnei shemaisa bereishis soid amok in a movement min hakros. Bereishis is a very big sod that is not understood from the psukim. V'lo yivada al burav al be'kabbalah Moshe Rabbeinu v'yakbur. It can only really be understood from the Masoros from Moshe. V'yodav chayvim lahasta isay. And those who know it are mechuyev to hide it. Lekach Oma Rabbi Yitzchak she'ein las cholos hatorah tzeref bereishis v'ara. That's what Yitzchak said. The Torah should not have started with bereishis. V'asipa mashivim mishum anasim shein yashayamim. And what happened the first day and second day? Mitzius adam b'chava b'chetem v'ansham b'sipa gan edim gesh adam imenu ki kol ze lo yuvan bina shleima min haksuvim. These are things that we can't understand from the psukim. And certainly there are mabel, there are flaga. She'eina tzorech behem gadol. There's no real tzorech. V'yaspik l'anshei Torah b'alek zunelu. We could do without these psukim. V'yaminu b'chlal she'niska v'asaras dibos. They could have started with Chodesh Lechem, and in asaras dibos there's a pasuk Yisheshem v'seven shayim v'tzaretz seven ksavbam v'yach b'hem hashvi. V'tishoyer ha'yidiyah le'yichidim shbem v'lachmash l'tzinem ha'torah shebal peh. So, and leave the rest of it as Torah shebal peh. So Ramban explains, the psukim are psukim that don't really tell us what happened at all levels. The side of how the world came from nothingness to somethingness is something that is not, it's something that's not understood in the psukim at any level, not mitzad pnimis, not mitzad chitzonos. The Gemara says, Ein dorsha ma'aser bereishis b'shnayim. You can't teach ma'aser bereishis to more than one person. There's a medrash here that says by Chulu, Ad kan kvoid Elokim hasta davar. Until the end of the first parsha in the Torah, it falls under the category of kvoid Elokim hasta davar. It is the covet of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to hide things. Mi kan ve'elech, it's kvoid melachim chakor davar. It's the covet of the melech to publicize, to look into it, to analyze it, and this is its parsha. No, its parsha's bereishis is a chido stuma va'aluma, and it's one of the things that I just want to point out something. Politics makes strange bedfellows, and you don't want to be in the same bed with somebody that you really don't want to be. One of the issues that has put us with some very strange bedfellows is this parsha of creationism versus evolutionism. So the evolution community is, it sort of ranges different levels of fear and so on, whatever it is. That we understand. But the fact that Bible thumping creationists are our quote bedmates, it is disturbing. It's disturbing because to take bereishis and to learn it like you'd be learning a third grade primer is a tremendous distortion of their Torah. A Yid finishes bereishis, and in line with the Chazal's injunction that Kvoid Elokim Hasta says, all I know is there was a Bria, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the Borei, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mechalik the Bria into 6, 7 different dargas. The main elements of the Bria, mitzad derotzna borei, is oir, rakia, and so on and so forth. And that's all I know. And I really don't know anything else. Not the science of cosmology, how exactly it happened. to use the psukim to build a science, it's a horrendous travesty. I mean, it's really a travesty. And even to understand it, you're talking about bereishis, which is what the Mishnah calls sister Torah, bereishis. So the need, the Ramban says these psukim don't have a makom, because all of Torah Shabbat from HaKodesh Zelachem onwards, and I think in line with Chazal from, let's say, by Chulu onwards, to some degree, have a meaning that you can discern from the psukim. You could take the basic meaning from the psukim. The Teichen Shabbat in Torah Shabbat is understood by everybody. It's a mitzvah to learn about it, and so on. There was an Avram, and there was a Sarah, there was this. Bereishis is a world that's sussum, and therefore in Torah we don't have things that have been chomesh lemikra shouldn't be able to cope with, and that's the kasha. So why are we starting with something which has not been chomesh lemikra? And he answers, and this is the way Ramban understands it. So that's how Ramban says the kasha. V'nosim it's like tam lezeh ki schila Torah bereish bar lakim v'sipo koyet sirat brios adam shem shul ma'isi yoda v'chol shatet al shaglov gan eden mifcham koymois, and the chet, the gerish on that, there are mabul in the chet, and so on and so forth. So the story of bereishis is the story of chet and onesh. In other words, the setting of bereishis is for the Maisa of Adam and Eitzadas, Noah, there are Mabul, there are Floga, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did not relinquish control over the Bria with the end of Bria's Olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashgiach in the Bria and pushes aside the sinner and draws to him the tzaddik. Im Kain, the next paragraph, Royuhu kasha Yosef agoy lachtoi. So it's appropriate that when a nation sins, they lose their place. And another nation comes and inherits the land. That's the Hanhaga and Ashkacha Kadosh Baruch Hu. And certainly the fact that Canaan is the least of all, and certainly shouldn't get out of Yisrael. Al Yeshua Avdei Hashem Zar Ohavo Kinyan Vayitilam Artzis Koyim, and so on and so forth. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. Eretz Yisrael is the place that's closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in line with the Hashgacha, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes things, moves them closer to Him when they are good, and pushes them aside when they are not good. And that's what Eretz Yisrael is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose Bnei Yaakov, Avram, Yitzchak Yaakov, because of the bechira of the others, and so on and so forth. Because the next paragraph, Vashayivayel hapirush shekasafti l'sheidim bereishis Rabbah shamru sham b'loshan zeh. So he says there's another in bereishis Rabbah, the same thing is mentioned in a little bit of a different way. Rabbi Shua, the Sifnim Shem Rabbi Pasach, Koach Ma'asav Higed La'amoy, Ma Tam Gilam HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Mashiv Yirishon Shem Hasheni. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell us what He created the first day and the second day? Mipnei Zayin Umus Shaloyu Moinin Es Yisrael V'Oimrim Lahem Ali Umah Shal B'zizus Atev. So that the Ummah should not tell Klal Yisrael, you are robbers. Yisrael Meshim Lehem V'Atem Lebzuzi B'Yetchem, and so on. And he brings the Chazal over here where we answer them back, and so on. Just want to explain just another nature that he's not pointing out. The need to answer Ummah Ha'olam is, l'chor it's a kasha both on what he says and what Rashi says. Yes, it's lovely that we have an answer for Ummah Ha'olam, but I don't think if they would take the Palestinians and open up a Rashi and Chumash say, it's a first Rashi. What are you talking about? Abbas, was meant it? It's a first Rashi. How could you claim it's yours? I don't think that's going to be a powerfully persuasive argument. So what's the point in the Chazal and the Rashi and so on? I think the point is it's in line with what they're saying. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with mishpat, and mishpat means that there's a discernible pattern of consistency, and that's what we call justice. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with moral rules. He expects us to play with those rules. He plays by those rules, and those rules, because they're a mitzius, they're there forever. Gzela is asur always, and the ritzich is asur, and it's mutter, to lahatzos hanirdaf, and so on. Those rules are there, and they're always there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's great hashgacha and anhaga needs to be understood in that same framework. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu is toiv and yasher. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't deal with favorites unless the favorites deserve to be dealt as favorites, like Lisa Panim, Masel Yisrael, that they Lefim Hadin. They're always things that are HaKadosh Baruch Hu's anhagas fit a pattern of emes and justice. So for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to give us Eretz Yisrael, and which is a very central part of our mitzius, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu stole it, quote unquote, for us, there would be something very, very. There cannot be such hashgacha, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the world dealt with mishpat, and that's why we start off, since Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael is going to be very central nekuda. We start off in saying the ground rule of all rules is HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world for mishpat, for tov, and so on. And you see that every time someone stepped out of line, they got pushed aside. Eretz Yisrael was a place that's the most central point of Tov, and the umos that were chote were pushed out by Klal Yisrael, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose for whatever good they were doing, so on and so forth. Okay, Piska Tava.